Bill Wells is the current mayor of El Cajon. Bill is a mental health professional with a doctorate of clinical psychology and is a registered nurse. He was a planning commissioner for El Cajon and was elected to serve on the El Cajon City Council in 2008 and also began serving as mayor of El Cajon in 2013. We're going to talk to him, but first, Cargo Cases and Rugged Gear Outfitters in El Cajon. Their website is cargostores.com, 423 Broadway in El Cajon. If you need to protect your gear while you're on the go, look no further. Cargo has the perfect case for you. So if you need to protect it and you want to customize it, Cargo is the place to go. Use code GOR for 10% off their website or mention Gun Owners Radio or SDCGO when you go into their store. Great products, great prices, and uncommonly good service. Cases and Rugged Gear Outfitters in El Cajon. Bill, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
You bet, man. I'm so glad you. Glad to see you. I know you just had went through. You had a really busy year over the last 12 months. You've done a ton.
I have.
And it looks like you are none the worse for the wear, my friend. You stand up for things when they need to be, a champion to stand up for them, and you win more often than you don't. And it's a real pleasure to have you.
Wow, what a great introduction. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So you and I was thinking about it. Do you remember when you and I met?
Yeah, I think it was 2010.
Yeah, you were running for Congress.
Yeah.
And I was a lowly volunteer for in the trenches, and you got the NRA endorsement, and I was so impressed. I tell this all the time, but it's worth repeating. They had everybody that was running. I think it was for Congress, right? Was it Congress or Assembly?
In 2010, it was Assembly.
It was Assembly. My apologies.
Yeah.
So they had all the Assembly candidates write their Second Amendment stance. I think they went down the list. Taxes, whatever. But the only one I paid attention to was the Second Amendment. So
sure.
So they had all the candidates write their view on the Second Amendment, and there were a lot of platitudes, but yours was perfect when it comes to the Second Amendment. Then you actually went into how, hey, this is also a property issue. A firearm is someone's personal property. So not only are you in violation of the Second Amendment, but you're also violating what this country was built on, which is the ability to own private property. That blew me away. That was an understanding of the issue that first I hadn't really considered in the past, but showed me that it was something that it was very principled and very well thought.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I think it's if you read the Constitution and you read it with intention, what were the founding fathers trying to say? Where were they trying to go? And it's pretty clear that personal freedoms and property rights and free speech and freedom of religion were the highest levels of the things that they were concerned about losing. And so whenever I see people assault any of those things, I'm going to stand up against it because I'm really a believer in the Constitution. I'm a believer in America, like everybody, but that can kind of get lost in, like you said, platitudes and kind of a rah-rah patriotism. But from a political science point of view, America has been the most successful form of government that the world has ever seen. And I feel blessed to have been born into that, to have reaped the benefits of that. And I don't want people to take it away. And God knows there are a lot of people who want to take it away from us.
You have have a successful career in mental health. I think that's a really good job. That's something that most people strive for, and you've made a fantastic career in politics. First off, why would you do that? Why would you do that to yourself? It seems like a really rough road to follow. What keeps you motivated?
Well, first off, I never really intended to go into politics. It wasn't on my list of things I wanted to do. It was really my wife who encouraged me, because poor Betty, I tell her all my thoughts all the time. I'll say, oh, this is what's going on, and this is why this is wrong. And she said, you should go into politics. I said, oh, no, that's ridiculous. They're much smarter people than me that are in politics. But I was working.
Found out that's not true.
Okay. You know how I found out that wasn't true? I was working for a hospital, and I was in the administration part of working for the hospital, and the state owed them a lot of money, and they wanted me to go to the state, to the Congress, or to the assembly members and the state senators and try to get our money back. And they were too cheap to hire somebody. So they said, we're just going to send you to Sacramento. You can do it. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I'm flying up to Sacramento, and I'm got a list of state senators I'm going to be meeting with and assembly people. And I was nervous. I thought, these are going to be the smartest people I've ever met, and they're going to like run all over me. And then I met these people, and I thought, oh, they're not exactly the sharpest people. Some of them were.
Some are, yeah.
But most of the people I met were fairly mediocre, and some people I met, you wonder how they got their shoes on that day. And when I would talk to my wife about that, she said, you should run. And so I eventually offered myself up just to help in any way I could, and ended up on the planning commission, and that just kind of set off a chain of events that got me into politics. But it wasn't my intention, and I thank God for that, because I see so many people that from the time they were 13 or 14 years old, watching The West Wing at home, they said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be president someday, and I'm going to go step by step by step. What happens is you get so focused on that, and you don't want to lose it. You don't want to lose any of your forward momentum, that you become paralyzed, and you can't make a decision because you're always worried about the next election. I always figured, hey, I'll ride this out, for a year or two until the people send me home, and then I'll be done. And a year or two turned into 20 years, but I still have the same feeling. It's like I own a healthcare company. I don't need to be a politician, so as long as I can do good, I'll do it, and I'm not going to change the way I think or vote or behave based upon the next election, which has given me an advantage, I think.
And El Cajon, just so people who maybe aren't familiar with El Cajon, San Diego is such a big city. It's such a big part of the county of San Diego that I don't think people realized. What's the population of El Cajon?
110.
110,000 people, which is that's like the size of like Green Bay, Wisconsin. You know what I mean? That's a big city.
In California, it's small, but most anywhere else in the country, it'd be one of the bigger cities.
And you guys have your own police department,
fire department,
enormous budget, big concerns. Plus, we're right here on the border, and El Cajon is a big town, big city. And it's on the border, but then it's also kind of right where rural meets urban.
It definitely has got a different feel than most of the coastal cities in San Diego County.
Yeah. So
I think it feels more like middle America, to be honest.
I think you're right in a lot of ways, but you have some big city problems.
Yes.
It definitely has a lot of charm, and it's a beautiful little town, but it's big enough, and it's close enough to the border, and it's close enough to a big population that you have some big city problems. And I know you just had a huge issue when it comes to illegal immigration, and I believe that it was tied to the Trump administration, what's going on with the Trump administration. But correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's true.
But talk about what just happened, because this was big. That everybody was talking about it. There were multiple meetings, people showing up. So walk us through the timeline.
Well, of course, I've been an outspoken critic of the Biden administration's policy on immigration. Since El Cajon was one of the 3 drop-off places, it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to the citizens. And as an American, I was horribly offended that we were just having an open border.
What is a drop-off station?
So when we were getting 1,000 or so people crossing the border every day, they would split them up between these 3 stations, one in San Ysidro, one in Oceanside, and one in El Cajon, and they would drop people off there, and those people would disperse then throughout the country.
Oh my gosh!
So
or they wouldn't. Or they'd stay right here.
Well, to be completely honest, these NGOs, which I am not fans of, they had so much money. They did a good job of flying these people to the other cities throughout the country. So we didn't have a huge problem with people congregating. Mm-hmm. But, we have these people coming over there in our town for a period of time. We have no idea who they are. Nobody does. Probably 90% of them were nice folks that just wanted to have a better life. But if 10% were terrorists or gang members or murderers or just criminals. That's a lot of people coming into our town that could do harm to our citizens that they don't need to be there. So I've been fighting against that for the last 4 years. But over Christmas time, I met with Tom Homan, and we talked.
The
border czar.
Yeah, the border czar for under Trump.
And he was. I wanted to see if he was serious because you see him on TV. He's a tough guy, and let me tell you, this guy. I got a good story for you about Tom. He's exactly who he says he is. And we met in Phoenix at this restaurant, and he's just like this tough street cop guy. And people are coming up, and he's talking to them, and I said, "Don't you have any security?" He said, he pulled his coat up, showed me his 45. He said, "Yeah, same security I've had for 45 years." So that was before. I'm sure he has security now that he's actually been confirmed. But he wanted to know if we would be willing to stand up and support the federal government in their quest to deport people, and not fall under the auspices of SB 54, which is a law passed in 2017, which says that any municipality in California cannot cooperate with the federal government when it comes to immigration. So we're not allowed to tell ICE or Border Patrol that we have a dangerous criminal who's an illegal alien in our possession. We're not allowed to answer their questions if they call us. And I said, yeah, I want to do that, but I need some help from the federal government because Attorney General Bonta has made clear that he's going to try to punish me if I do that. And what we finally decided to do was we decided to pass a resolution that said our intention was to cooperate with the federal government. And it's kind of a half measure because we need the federal government to step in and give us the ability to be protected, to be indemnified. But I still wanted to point out to every city in California and frankly America, there are people in California that are conservative. There are people in California that have common sense ideals. And I wanted to say that 57% of the people in El Cajon voted for President Trump, knowing exactly what his immigration stance was going to be. So I wanted to make that clear, and got a lot more pushback on that than I expected.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about, there were a couple words that you used. One was cooperate, one was support. And those can be very vague. Support can just be like, hey, go get them. Support can be, hey, we're going to actually, be there with you. And you know what I mean? So so other than just, I would assume that one of the things, it sounds like one of the things is if a police officer arrests somebody and they're an illegal alien, then you'd say, hey, here's an illegal alien. But what else does it mean to cooperate and support?
Well, I think the first thing I wanted to signal to the federal government was you guys are in charge. Because of the supremacy clause of the United States Constitution, I believe that state law is superseded by federal law. And so when you're a city like El Cajon and you've got the giant government of California saying if you cooperate with the feds, we'll punish you. And you've got this massive government like the federal government of the United States of America saying if you don't cooperate with us, we're going to punish you.
Yeah.
That puts us in a really strange situation.
Right.
So what I wanted to do was say, federal government, it's our intention to support you. You give us the backing, you give us the way to do it, and we're on your side. And we're going to do whatever you ask us to do. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to signal to President Trump that California is not a lost cause. And I know that Huntington Beach has done basically the same thing, and I think other cities in California are going to follow suit. And I think it's important that we signal to the federal government that we want to be cooperative. But what does that mean exactly? I don't know yet.
Yeah,
because
okay.
it really depends on what Pam Bondi does, the new Attorney General. It depends on whether California buckles. I think what I told Holman was that if you really want to make California sit up and take notice, you take away their money. You say, we're not going to give you any housing money, any health and human services money, any welfare money, any Medi-Cal money until you cooperate with federal law. And I think that's reasonable. Why would you support a government that's in rebellion against you?
Yeah, it really is such an odd issue. I heard a statistic that I think it was like 59%. They just, I think it was Pew just put out a poll that it's like 59% of the nation agrees that illegals should all be sent back to wherever they came from. 59%. And there was the same survey found that even higher percentage agree that criminals, if you're a criminal, if you're an illegal alien and you've committed a crime while you're in this country, that you should be sent back. But 59% say yes.
That's an amazing number.
That's enormous.
Considering how many Democrats there are in the nation. I mean, obviously, a lot of Democrats are saying I've had enough. They probably want to stay true to democratic principles, but they don't want to go off the cliff and make their country uninhabitable.
So you passed this resolution. A resolution, for those who don't know, is just basically it's an official action by the city council that says, "Hey, this is what we believe, or this is where the direction we want to go." It's usually a page or two long, and it basically states this is our opinion, or this is our plan, or
it said two basic things. One, that we are not a sanctuary city and we do not want to be a sanctuary city, and two, that we believe the federal government has the authority to set the law in this case immigration, and that it's our intention to follow the rule of law.
So what was the pushback? And by the way, it took a couple different meetings. This didn't pass first time around, right?
No, the first time I brought it, I thought it was easy. I thought it was really, frankly, a non-issue. I had no idea. But what happened is these non-governmental organizations that make, by the way, billions of dollars off of the immigration process, they brought in paid activists, about 80 of them, who all spoke and called us Nazis and fascists and racists. And I think 3 of our city council members kind of buckled under that pressure. 2 were definitely against it. They definitely bought into the we're racists and fascist type thing. And one of them, Steve Goebel, I think he was on the fence. He didn't like the language, so he voted against it because he wasn't completely there yet. And then he decided he wanted to bring it back with a few changes, which I agreed to, and we brought it back and passed it. But 3-2.
And your city council, it's not, all 5 of you, I believe, are Republican.
Yeah.
And all 5, pretty sure, I'm just thinking through the names, I think San Diego County gun owners endorsed all 5. I mean, it's not like they're, I guess what I'm saying is, it's not like, for those listening outside of California, or maybe even just aren't familiar with East County and El Cajon in San Diego, there's nobody on there's not like a bunch of weird left wing progressive extremists or whatever. I mean, you guys, there's a lot of solidarity and a lot of
for most issues. This is the first time I've ever felt like the council had moved left.
And it sounds like the sentiment or what was happening around them was sounds like they were more concerned about the optics and the message than they were the actual nuts and bolts of it. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking out of school here. But
I can't speak for them about the optics. If I look at what they said, was they agreed with the protesters that this would make people feel unsafe and cause division in the community. And they didn't think, I think they would have been a lot happier had I just never brought it up and they didn't have to weigh in. But I refuse to let it go.
Yeah, it really does sound like it was just the waves, the waves that it produced was the concern. But I don't understand. And that's why I wanted to ask about we talked a little bit about the, what exactly does it mean? What does it mean to support? It's not like El Cajon PD is going to be going house to house or something crazy like that.
I think it's important to mention that, because one of the things that really frustrated me was the disingenuousness of the arguments, in that their whole the opposition's whole argument was, you're going to go into churches and schools and people's breakfast table and where people were working at their office and drag people off and throw them on a plane to Nicaragua. And first off, our police officers are never going to get involved in that. We're not going to be involved in immigration policy. We're not setting immigration policy. All we're saying is that when we arrest somebody who's committed a crime, and we know that, say, they're a Venezuelan gang member, rather than book them in the county jail, knowing they're going to get out in 3 hours, wouldn't it make more sense to call ICE and say, hey, I've got a Venezuelan gang member here who has stolen a car, and we can hold him in our holding cell if you can be down here in a couple hours, and you can do what you want with him. Now, I think that's reasonable. I think that's good for the community. But people wouldn't refuse to argue it on those merits. They argued on this fantasy that we were going to somehow enlist the El Cajon police officer to become some kind of immigration task force, which we don't have the money or time or manpower to do that.
Or I don't even think they're the interest in doing that.
I'm just, But when we got a dangerous person, doesn't it make more sense to do everything you can to get him off the street as opposed to getting him, processing him and having him right back on your street?
Yeah, I don't really get I feel like I'm pretty good at looking at both sides of issues and kind of, understanding like, oh, okay, this is what this person's concerned about and this is what this other person is concerned about. I'm having a hard time seeing the disadvantage to my community in taking someone who is here illegally, who has committed a crime, and sending them back to where they came from. I don't see what the problem is.
Well, all I can tell you is for a nice person, for somebody who's thought of themselves as a good person all their life, has tried to do good things all their life, to sit in a room where 80 different people are calling you a racist and Hitler and the worst human being on the planet, that can get to people sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but
yeah. Oh, it's extremely intimidating. I mean, holding public office, and it feels like every single eye in your city is looking at you. I get it.
But
I totally get it.
My litmus test is it real? I mean, if I'm doing something that's real, if I'm really doing it, and people are calling me out because it's evil, then I'm going to look at that and say, am I being evil? But if I'm doing one thing and people are saying, no, what you're really doing is this other thing, which is completely untrue, it's hard for me to get excited about that because I'm logical. I'm not gonna fall for rhetoric.
Yeah. So what's the next step on this thing? It's passed.
Oh, it's passed. It's done.
Is there now? We just wait and see what the federal government does and says?
Yeah,
or?
I think so. Yeah, I think Pam Bondi is on the move. You've been reading the news the last couple of days. She just sued Illinois. She's just filed papers against New York. She's mentioned California and said, "You're next." So, it's gonna end up going to court. I think that the Trump administration is bold enough to actually hold money back from California, and I think if they do that, California will fold because we're already $80 billion in debt.
Hey, everybody, thanks for watching. I'm Michael from Gun Owners Radio. If you liked what you saw, please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and make a comment. Help us out. Go to gunownersradio.com. Thanks for watching.